So I'm going to talk a bit about the background to how the project came about, and then I'll show you the resource and talk you through it. And then Jim's going to talk about some other bits and pieces which you can also work into the project if you've got the equipment to do that. So just over a year ago, Jim and myself from the LoveLearning team first met with Kim Applin, and she had just started as Aberdeenshire's newly appointed RAISE officer at that point. And since then, Caroline has also joined the team, and we've been working with both of these lovely ladies on this project. During that initial discussion, because we're teachers ourselves, we spoke about the pressures on teachers and how tricky it can be to fit everything in or find the time to get ideas and resources together. And we also talked about how transition from primary into secondary can sometimes feel a bit disconnected and unrelated to what's going on in the primary 7 class. Often there are lots of things going on for those individuals who need a bit of extra support, but for most pupils, generally the focus is on that 3 or 4 day visit up to the academy. And apologies if that's a bit of a sweeping statement, if that's not the case in your cluster. We thought it would be great to have a more holistic approach where you had a project that your primary 7s might work on from the start of term 4. And if all schools in the cluster were also doing that same project, then you could join up for bits of it and work together. We then thought that those pupils would already have begun to get to know each other by the time they got to their visit days, and then wouldn't it be great if they could share what they'd done when they were all together in one place? And wouldn't it also be wonderful as a teacher to have ready-made resources all in one place that you could access? So with that in mind, we had to think of a project which would be something that could be picked up by any school in Aberdeenshire. It wouldn't matter where you were. And Aberdeenshire is such a vast area, as you know, so it's tricky to find something that everyone would have in common. Sustainability is high on everyone's agenda. So with these two things in mind, we thought that water would be a good focus, because wherever you go in Aberdeenshire, you're not going to be far from a water source, whether that's the North Sea or a river or a burn. So with that, the idea of Fish in Transition was born. And to get a bit of help with the project, we got in touch with Macduff Marine Aquarium, the Devon Bogie and Isla Rivers Trust, and the Don and Dee Trusts. So they've all had an input too, and they're excited to be part of it and to have schools contacting them if they decide to use the resources. So I'm going to come out of this now. There's the link at the bottom, but I'll try and come out of this and get myself into the STEM transition. So hopefully you can see that. This is the website. And it's been created using GloBlogs. So anybody can create a website on GloBlogs. Really nice and easy to do. We've kept it so that only people with an Aberdeenshire Glow account can get access to it. So at the end, or maybe Jim can do it just now, we'll put a link in the chat so that you can click on it. And as long as you're signed in already with your Glow account, you should just be able to click on that link and get in straight away. Otherwise, you're going to need to copy that link, and then when you're next signed into Glow, paste it into that same browser and it will work for you. What you could do, which is what I've done, is create a tile on. So this is the first page, and it's our home page, and here you'll find an introduction to the project. And we've taken that idea of water and based the project around a theme of fishing and sustainability. But there are loads of aspects within this, and you could easily go down a number of paths like the water cycle or river formation and so on. Any ideas that you see on this site can be adapted to suit your particular situation, and it's entirely up to you which resources you wish to use and in which order you want to do it. So if we scroll down a wee bit on this home page, you'll see here that I've got a wee card game. So this is an activity that you could put up on your interactive board and play as a class. So what the pupils do is they turn over the cards and they try to match them up. So you can use this as an introduction to the topic. And while they are doing this, as the teacher, that's your opportunity to then use those cards as prompts. So you ask questions about the pictures that they're seeing, and query why there would be some pictures of fish and some pictures of boats and some pictures of plastics and so on. And that should then get them thinking about what the topic is about and what you might be covering in it. If we scroll back up to the top, you'll see along the top here we've got different curricular areas. We haven't got specific pages for literacy and numeracy, and when you start working on the project, you'll see that this is because literacy and numeracy run right the way through it. You're going to be covering loads of literacy and numeracy outcomes, so it would have really been too much to have put all that in there separately. If we go into science to start off with, hopefully it won't take too long. Here we go. You'll see that depending on whether you've decided to have a focus on oceans or on the rivers, we've got a series of ideas underneath for each of them. And when you click on these headers, you then get a drop down where the idea is expanded upon. Now in these drop downs, you're not going to find detailed lesson plans in each of these, but what you will find are ideas which you can then build your own school context around. And you can adapt these to how you want to use them. And some of these lesson ideas, you're going to find links to videos, or there might be links to other websites. It just depends on each one. And we also have the experience and outcomes that it links to as well. If we go up into technologies, it's slightly different. But if you click on the drop-down menu here, you're given a series of ideas which you can use throughout a number of the lessons on the site. And when you read these, it should then be easy to make the links with how you can use those apps to support other lessons. So for example, in this top one, it says that pupils could use notes to draw out food chains. That could then get you thinking as to how else you could use the Notes app. So perhaps you could use it to draw out the life cycle of a mayfly or label a drawing of the equipment that a diver uses. So, you can think about how you want to do that. If we scroll a bit further down on the technologies page, you also get ideas for lessons with a coding focus within Scratch and Microbit as well, and it's the same format. So heading along the tabs at the top, in the menu at the top, each curricular area follows the same format with that series of ideas with links to other sites and links to the experiences and outcomes in it. Along at the end here, we've worked very closely on this with Macduff Marine Aquarium and different rivers trusts in the northeast. And they've shared their resources with us. So we've given them their own separate sections, which have loads of activities in them, which we have then created to go with their resources that they've given us. So this is the aquarium section here. We've got a little bit of an introduction, and you can get the contact details for Marie, who's their learning officer. You can get in touch with her if you want to set up a visit or organise an online tour. The next wee section here goes over the 3 visit programmes, which sit very nicely with the Fish in Transition project. So you can read a little overview of those visits here, or you can click on the picture to get more information about them. And a trip to the aquarium fits in really well with the topic because it allows the pupils to see the animals, making it clear to them the reasons why we need to do what we can to protect this environment. So scrolling down a little bit further, we have an area with those resources that I was talking about from the aquarium. So what we've done here is take the resources and supplement them with other bits and pieces. So I'll show you what I mean by going into the filtration section. And I hope this is all still working for you because it's opening up new tabs. So hopefully now you can see filtration. And great stuff, thanks Jim. And if I scroll down, you can see that we've got a bit of information about why filtration is important and a video to support that, which is child friendly. We've then also got a video from the aquarium, which looks at their filtration systems. And then the pupils can try it out on a smaller scale by carrying out their own filtration experiment. And if you have got iPads in your school, this link here opens up a lab book on the iPad, which you can then airdrop to your pupils as a template and they can then work on that. So I can't open it here for you just now because I'm on a Windows machine. But if you've got an iPad, please log into that after and have a little look at the app and the lab book that's on that. So the reason why we've created that using an Apple app is so that we get that multifunctionality out of the document. So if we'd used an Excel spreadsheet, for example, that can be very static, and a photocopied worksheet is the same. But because we've done this within numbers, the pupils can now support their findings with photos and videos and voice notes, making it so much more interactive and exciting. If I go back into the Macduff page again, each of these boxes follow the same format. So you click on them and it takes you into another page. You get that wee explanation, you get the supporting video, you get an activity or lesson that you can carry out. You might get some other bits and pieces, and then on each page as well, we've got links back to other parts of the website. So if we click on here, social subjects, that'll take me back into that transition site, the main site that I was showing you before. And then further down the page, we've explained all of the experiences and outcomes which they fit with for that particular activity. The last one on here out of these 9 is the competition. And the competition is GamesCon, which you'll have heard me harping on about left, right and centre. But it really is an excellent competition to take part in, and it fits in really, really well with Fish in Transition should you decide to take part in it. In here I've embedded the GamesCon booklet so you can get more information about the competition before you decide if it's something that you want to take part in or not. And it has got a link in there to sign up to that. It's got a form. But you can just use the transition project without taking part in GamesCon if you wish. If you're concentrating on rivers rather than the seas, we'll go into the river section. It follows exactly the same format as the aquarium. There's a great link here to BBC Bite Size, which has all about the rivers, so that's a good place to start. Then a bit further down, we've got links to different places where you can get a wee bit of help with. So you can click on this link here and it'll take you to the Ranger Service. So everything's nice and handy for you, so you don't have to go rummaging about for contact details. A number of the river's activities are better, obviously, if you go to your local river or burn and carry them out, and that will generate a risk. And I know how much hassle it is planning a trip like that and making sure that you've got everything covered. But what we've done here is we've provided you with a risk assessment template, and hopefully that works out okay. So you would download this, fill in your details, and then go through each risk and assess whether that's low, medium or high for your particular situation. So that just takes a wee bit of work out of it for you. Back on this page again, we've got another image here which has various sections that you can click on to get to the different activities. So just like the aquarium section, we click on it, we have an explanation and a supporting video, we've got the activity that goes with it, any supporting resources, the links back to other curricular areas within the site, and finally the experiences and outcomes that it relates to. In the electrofishing page, we've got the lab book. It's another lab book here that's been created in numbers. So again, you need to go onto an iPad to access that. And on some of the other pages, like flow rate, for example, it has suggestions for how you can use iPad. So the iPad is this wonderful portable device that you can take about with you. So just ideal for field trips because you've got everything that you need in that little device. So you don't need to take meter sticks down with you because you've got the Measure app. You don't need to take a camera or camcorder because you've got the camera app. You don't need a stopwatch because you've got the clock app, and so on. So everything that you need in there. The activities on the aquarium and rivers pages open up in a separate tab like you'll have seen, so it's easy to get back to where you were originally. And then the final tab on the menu is a contact form, because we'd love to hear how you get on with this project if you decide to do it. We don't want this site to be static. We want to update it with new ideas and suggestions that teachers put forward to us. And in fact, I've got some more resources to add into it. So that's basically an overview of the site. It's all good to go. You can use it from now on. I've just got a couple of videos to finish up, which I'll get done after the in-service day, and they'll go on and everything will be there for you. So really, if you wanted to do this as a cluster project, we envisage that you would decide which parts you were doing as a primary and which might be more suited to the secondary. There could be aspects such as presentations and videos that the pupils prepare at primary, and then these are shared and showcased during the secondary visits. Or perhaps areas such as drama could be covered by the secondary, where you've got those specialists and they do that during their visit days. And then this is what pupils come back to school with to share when they return to primary. We have also had some schools saying that their whole cluster doesn't want to do it, but they'd like to do it as a mini cluster of a few smaller schools, and that's absolutely fine as well. You know, you're giving those pupils the chance to come together, make those new relationships before they head up to the big school. And the other thing that you might be wondering about is a composite class. Again, you can do this with a composite class. You don't have to just stick with primary sevens. As the teacher, you'll be able to differentiate those tasks accordingly to suit them, just as you would with any resource. And I think that you'll probably have some ideas too about how it would work best in your cluster. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And Jim, I'll pass over to you if you want to, because there were some bits and pieces that you wanted to share.
Oh, yeah, microphone. Once you figure out how to technologically switch the microphone on. So I'm particularly looking at the technology as part of the site and how you as teachers can start to ramp up the technology use in a class, because a lot of it is completely overlooked, and yet you're using lots and lots of the Education Scotland E's and O's, if you like, for the technology. So I just share my screen and just do a chat through some of the bits and pieces. Is my screen sharing, is it? Oh, window.
Not quite yet, Jim.
And what's happening here? Is that sharing?
Yeah, that's come through now.
There we go. Okay, so that should be the most exciting document in the world, the E's and O's. So a lot of the times the youngsters get set off on a task to do X, Y, or Z, and they often go to the internet and they do bits and pieces, and yet we don't seem to record, or maybe you are recording, but a lot of the work they do mixes in with the E's and O's. So if you're doing a little bit on gathering the water temperatures or something of the local river or stream, then they'll have had to go and look up the maps to find out how to get there. They've probably had to analyse roads, look at road maps, how far is it going to go, how long is the drive, etc. All of that is searching, processing and managing information responsibly, and should be annotated somewhere in your lesson plans that this is actually being covered. So that's the kind of thing that's easy win for the technology's part, but also lets the youngsters know that, oh, we're not just searching the internet, we're doing something that's very important. So look at level 2 for here. The youngster can use digital technologies to search, access, retrieve information, and aware that not all of this information is credible. That's just one little thing here that youngsters, you'll probably set them off on your class to go and find out some information. But through a conversation, they can find out, well, actually, it's not credible to get the bus because, well, in this case, it is credible to get the bus, but it's not practical because it's going to take 4 hours to get the 3 miles down the road or whatever. But the information that's credible, we can look at websites and look at the security of the websites and so on. So that kind of bit here. Using digital products, another important one. So you set them off to doing some project to go down to figure out something by the riverside that you want to be working on. So they take with them digital cameras. They take with them an iPad. They take with them devices for recording. So they might have a stopwatch or something. So again, all of that is part of the idea that youngsters are starting to realize that, oh, I don't need a stopwatch because my iPad can do that as well. Or I don't need to take a computer because I can Bluetooth my information from one device to another or whatever. That kind of idea. They're starting to understand how that technology in the school can be used more effectively than just sitting on the desk and they're working with it on the desk. And the cyber resilience and internet safety, of course, then that's very important. And really every lesson where you're using the internet, you would be kind of giving the youngsters the confidence to understand the good things that are on the internet and how to look out for the bad things and what to do if they find anything like that. And in here, if you give them a certain job to do, in level 2, they can explore communities, demonstrate and understand the responsible digital behavior. So that will include how do we communicate by email, by using, well, they shouldn't be using social media, but we know that they are. How do we do all that properly, safely, and appropriately without giving out too much information? So you can see there's great things just in the digital literacy part here that you can be bigging up your lesson plans, but also getting the youngsters more involved than just going to the computer to do a Google search, because then we're going to say, let's start to analyze what we're doing with this Google search. We search these sites, which were credible, which weren't. Was this an appropriate site? Did you think it was safe to look at, etc., etc., that kind of stuff. And the top one here, they're an understanding of what the tools are and how they can use them. And that's important. So digital literacy part, a little bit boring, stuff that gets done every day, but you can start to really address those E's and O's as the kids go about their work. If we look at the technological developments, I've not got very much here because that's looking at how things have progressed. So not really much of the fishing transition, except we could look at how has fishing, I think I put that on the website, how has fishing boat technology advanced from the early days. So we've got a historical part there with history. So we can see they used to go out and the old manny would know exactly where the fish were. To now they've got sophisticated sonar, side scan sonar, and the poor fish haven't got a chance, the ones that are left. So that kind of idea, how technology has developed over the years, and what has that impact been on all of us? So the impact, the inclusion of sonar onto fishing boats sounds like a really good idea, because the captain of the fishing boat can go and catch loads of fish and make loads of money. But 20 years down the line, how has that affected us all? So that kind of stuff here. But the other one we want to look at here was really the computing science part. And the computing science part, you'll know we've got a competition, our GamesCon, which is directly linked to this. And the GamesCon part of it there is going to address the bottom part here, designing, building and testing computing solutions. We're looking at level 2, probably that's what we're doing, so they can create, develop, and evaluate computing solutions in response to the design challenge. So their design challenge is what they're going to imagine is going to answer the question that's set them in the competition. So they'll be working on all of this, designing, building and testing computing solutions. But further up here, we've got understanding the world through computational thinking. So that's an important thing to do. Many teachers from we used to do this a while ago were a little bit scared of computational thinking until they realize it's just something that they do every single day, but with different words attached to it. So that's how are we looking at problems? How are we breaking these problems down? How are we then approaching the individual elements of that problem and finding solutions for each one? And you can break that down to brushing your teeth. So you've got to go and find the brush, you've got to go and find the toothpaste, take the lid off the toothpaste, speed it on the brush, brush your teeth, etc., etc. So that algorithm for that breaks down that process into manageable tasks. So when you're saying, okay, we're going to be going to look at a project at Macduff Aquarium, so it's not woohoo, all like it on the bus and pile up at the aquarium and then not know what they're going to do. And you can use the first part here in the digital literacy part by looking at the websites. We can look at Macduff Aquarium, they're online. We can establish what we're going to do. We can look at the plans. We can work out our way through the aquarium. So we can have all sorts of things ready before we actually get to the aquarium. And whereas before we might have called that planning, we could then call that computational thinking, because we've broken down that problem of getting the school chosen, from their classroom into Macduff Aquarium and back again. So we've thought about searching up bus timetables. We've looked at the aquarium to see if there's any health and safety issues. We've looked at the aquarium to see what sort of things can we see. We've looked at the aquarium website to see, well, this is the kind of stuff we want to see because that's relevant to our project and so on. So that was my bit there on the more boring part of the technology E's and O's, but hopefully that little bit of rambling I've done will give you the idea that if we look at these again and we start to put the E's and O's into our planning around the technologies, especially digital literacy and the computing science, you'll find that the youngsters will then have a really better awareness of all things of computing and computational thinking and technology around them. But you as a teacher will start to focus in those individual elements that before may have been just a throwaway line, such as we're going to go to Macduff Marina, here's the website address, find out the things that you can do. So now we're starting to look at that in a lot more detail and get the youngsters to explore and problem solve as they're going through the lesson. And that was all I had to say, I think. Oh, I did say I was checking on the blog, and the blog is Glow only. Is that correct? Or do you want it to be public,
No,
Julia?
that's right. So I'd said at the start that it's just for
Yeah,
Aberdeenshire people to
sure.
access. So
Yeah,
you've got to have a Glow account within Aberdeenshire to be able to access it.
that's fine. Um, and the other thing, of course, to say is that for anything's technology, you'll know the LoveLearning email address, or you know Julia and myself. And then, of course, for STEM, you'll hear from Kim and Caroline later on, I think. At least I can't see if they're still
Yeah,
here.
can still hear.
Um, the, yeah, and the E's and O's for our GamesCon, for example, and for the Fish Transition, the Fish Transition site, we've deliberately put up to level 2, knowing that there are progressions into level 3. So that's why we've called it transition, because in secondary school, they should be able to take what the youngsters have been working on, whichever element it has been in whichever curricular area, and be able to carry that on as they move through first year.
Yeah, I
That
think
was all
I
for
think you'll
me, I
find
think.
when you go through the site, there's loads of stuff in there, and you probably wouldn't get through all of it. But it is just up to you to go through it and say, well, look, I quite fancy doing this, and I quite fancy doing that, and maybe discussing with some of your colleagues in other schools. Oh, well, we could do all this in primary, or we could do this bit in the secondary. Um,
I think it's worth saying as well, Julia, I think you already said it, that we're keen for this to be a site where you're going to go and find out all sorts of things. So if you have a great idea and you've got something planned, then please share it with us, and we'll put it in the blog.
Absolutely. And Jim, weren't you saying stuff before about how you can add in peripherals as well to this
Oh yeah.
project, like Pasco
Oh
sensors and things like that, that
yeah.
some schools might have, but some schools might want to know a little bit more about?
Yeah, so I forgot I've written that down and never got onto it. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of technology already in schools that may be in a cupboard somewhere. So from my time at sea, and I was in the North Sea, and we worked ROVs. There's the XYZ axis. These things have got to move through 3 axes. So you've got the 2-axis thing with BBOT, so the youngsters can learn moving left, right, forward, back, and so on. And then we can introduce a third dimension. If some schools have got drones, we can add in the Z element there, because we've got now 3 dimensions these things can move in, and that's kind of simulating what might happen underwater with ROVs. And lots of schools have got drones, lots of schools have got B-bots and dash and dots and all these sort of things. But the other things that every school has got are microbits. And microbits are really, really good. And I thought about how can we make it quite simple? How do we get a simple project? So it could be water temperature. So we could go out and buy a £20 water temperature sensor for a microbit, and then all the coding with that, and that's a perfectly valid thing to do, and that might be something up secondary. Or you get the kids to problem solve. And hopefully someone would come up, well, wait a minute, the microbit's actually got a temperature sensor on it. So what if we put it in a plastic bag and seal it up? So we put the whole microbit with the batteries in a plastic bag, we seal it up so it's waterproof, and we drop it in the water. That's going to measure the temperature. Then we could get a little bit clever and say, well, if we've got 2 microbits, what we can actually do is we can use the radio function, and we can tell one microbit, the one that's in the water, to transmit the temperature to the one that's on dry land. Now, what good is that for us? Well, you've got the microbit on a fishing line, because you don't want to lose it, and the water temperature would, and I'm not very scientific, but I think if the water temperature is high, and that's the problem we've got at the moment, then there's less oxygen, so there's less fish can live, etc., etc. So again, they can hypothesize from that. All from a microbit that's in your school in a plastic bag. So you don't need lots and lots of resources. What we're trying to do in the LoveLearning team is to build up a bank of resources, and we're looking to get Pasco sensors, which are industry standard, extremely accurate, and can be used from everybody from primary 1 right through to S6, because all they do is transmit data, and it's how is that data used. So in primary 5, you might say, well, the temperature's increasing. The same project at advanced higher level could be they've taken 4 seconds of that graph and actually seen the rate of change over milliseconds and things like that, however that works. I don't know, I'm talking nonsense here, but you can use the same sensor. So we're trying to look at to get a batch of those sensors that will work with iPads and computers, and maybe we'll be able to loan them out to schools to see how they get on with them. So we're looking at doing that as well.
Sorry, Jim, I'm
Is
just
that enough?
I'm just answering one of the questions, but maybe I'll just say the answer to the question actually rather than type it. So we've got a question here which says, can you say the name of the tile for glow again, please? So what we're saying is, if you take the link that we've popped into the chat, copy that link and go into your Glow Launchpad, there's a box in there that says add new tile, and then you can click on personal tile and you can paste that link in there, and that will create a link on your own Launchpad.
Can you see my
Yes, are
screen
you
now?
going to demonstrate this, Jim?
I'm just going to show. This is really
True
quick to
Blue
do.
Peter
Glow.
style.
True blue feet of fashion. Yeah. Watch glow. Accept. Where am I going now? I don't want to go. I want to go my favourites. So it's very easy to do. I'm just going to use a website. So I go into my Launchpad. I click on Add. I click on Personal Tile. And then here, the URL. In the URL, I put the URL of the website I want. So I'm just going to do BBC here. Here's the BBC. You would have got you would have got this URL up here from the blog. So we put this in here. We put the URL in here. We paste that in. We give it a title, BBC News. You would again put whatever you're doing in here. We don't need to put a subtitle in. We click Generate Thumbnail. And what that'll do is it'll create a tile for me. So I click on OK. So when I go into my Launchpad now, I've got a BBC. I'll close it down so you know I'm not cheating. Look, we've got a BBC tile here. So I click on that. It takes me straight to that tile. So what you would do is you would open up the blog, get the URL for the blog, click on your Launchpad, click on Add, put the blog URL in, give it a title, and that's you done. That's it done. And this is at the very bottom. If I click on Edit Launchpads, I can click on here. So here's the number. Let's put this in pole position. We change that to number 1, and we click on Save Changes, and you see it's gone up here. So it's nice and easy to do. Very quick. So summary, click on Add, put the URL, add, personal tile, put the URL in, give it a title, generate thumbnail, OK, and your Bob is your uncle. That's it done. Is that good in Blue Peter style?
That was very good, Jim. That was very good. Thank you.
Can I just come in, Julia? Sorry. I just wanted to remind those people that have done the Global Underwater Hub training with us last year, or may have done it in previous years, those resources, or you might have a colleague in the school that have done that training. There should be a kit box in your school if that's the case, because this fits really, really nicely with this project. So just to kind of flag that up.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed the session today. Thanks very much to Ian for doing the first part, and then for everyone for staying on for our second part as well. So have you got anything else you want to add, Kim?
No, just that we would just love to hear from anyone who's doing anything connected with this, because often what happens, and I'm speaking from Caroline and myself's point of view, is people go away enthused and we don't hear you know, and please don't be shy. Please let us know, and if there's anything we can do to help or support, you know, please get in touch, because we honestly would love to hear how it's going.
Yeah, we're the same, aren't we, Jim? We would just love to hear from
Exactly.
people
Yep.
and see what everybody's getting up to in school. And you might not think it's much, but every little thing, it's just super exciting, and it's bringing that learning alive for the pupils. So, yeah, please do let us know how you're getting on. And thanks very much for your time tonight. And we look forward to hearing all about it. And you'll get away a few minutes earlier, which is always good.
It's always a
Yeah,
bonus.
Thanks, Julia.
no
Thank
Thanks,
problem.
Ian.
you.
Thank you.
Thank Fiona. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.